Welcome to a new year. I'm Jodi Schafer. This is January's edition of HR Hot Topics, and it is 2020, folks, the start of a new decade. And for us at HRM, this is the start of our second full year producing these videos. So if you've been with us from the start, God, thanks. And thanks for coming along this month. Because it's the start of the new year, I want to update you on a few things. A couple of laws took effect on January 1, so both have to do with pay. We'll make sure we're in compliance there. I also want to circle back around. The Supreme Court decided not to issue an advisory opinion on this minimum wage, paid sick leave law, so I can give you a little bit about that too. But then really spend a bulk of our episode this month talking about inclement weather and if that affects your office open or closing. How do you pay or not pay employees as a result? So let's jump in here. First, on the compliance side, effective January 1, minimum wage in Michigan increased yet again. It is now up to $9.65. That is not the end. It's set to increase next year as well. So we're kind of on this scheduled increase table over the next few years here. And as I said, January 1, it went up again. So $9.65 for your hourly folks. And if you're an exempt worker, a salaried employee, don't worry, we're not leaving you out. That went up too. So on January 1, the minimum earning threshold for your salaried workforce increased pretty significantly. It's now at $35,568 annually. That's the minimum amount that an employee can earn to be considered salary, in addition to the duties test that they also have to perform. So $684 a week if you're looking at that weekly. So 2 increases in pay. Just want to make sure we're on the right track there. And as I mentioned, the Michigan Supreme Court has, just prior to the holidays, actually come out and said in a 4-3 decision that they are not going to issue an advisory opinion on the issue of whether or not the Michigan legislature had the right, under the Michigan Constitution, to amend ballot language around a minimum wage and paid sick leave. If you'll recall, both of those issues were initiated as a result of a citizen ballot. Enough signatures were gained for that, and so the legislature adopted both of those into law and then amended them prior to implementation last year in March. And so there's been this back and forth about whether or not the legislature had the right to do that. Several folks had asked, and by folks I mean the legislature, the Michigan Chamber, had asked the Michigan Supreme Court to weigh in, sort of settle it once and for all. Oral arguments were heard in July, and we found out, as I said, before the holidays that the Supreme Court decided not to issue an opinion. So what does that mean for you? It means we continue as is, unless or until another court decision and or the state attorney general tell us differently. And that's sort of the scary part for an employer, is we're in limbo now. So we wait and see. But for now, you continue enacting both of those provisions as they are currently written with those amendments. And if anything changes on that front, I will be sure to let you know. So let's shift gears now on to inclement weather. It's January, and as of filming this, there is snow on the ground. That hasn't been the case for us down here in mid-Michigan for quite a while now, but it's here, and I think it's probably going to continue. And so there are times when weather forces us as business owners to close our offices or our practices unexpectedly, so we close for the full day, or we might send staff home early because the roads are getting bad. And how do you compensate? Do you compensate employees if and when that happens? So I want to talk to you about this from 2 different vantage points: what you have to do under the Fair Labor Standards Act, and what you might want to do that would be above and beyond that. So first, what you have to do. The Fair Labor Standards Act is a federal law, and what it says basically is if you have hourly workers, you only have to pay them for the actual hours they work. So if you send an hourly employee home early because the roads are getting bad, or you close the office altogether because it's just too dangerous to drive in, technically employees wouldn't be working for the second half of that day or the full day if you close the office, and therefore, if they're not working, you don't have to pay them. Your salaried employees, your exempt employees, it's a little different story. Your exempt employees need to be paid their full weekly rate for any week in which any work is performed. Now, there are a couple of carve-outs for that, but inclement weather is not one of them. So if you close the office for a partial day or you close for a full day, if that exempt or salaried employee worked any other time during that week, they're going to get paid the full week's worth of wages. So that's kind of the differentiator between hourly and salary. And as I said, that's what you have to do from a Fair Labor Standards standpoint. But then you can shift to what should you do. For many of you, your employees are living paycheck to paycheck, and their expenses don't drop just because they didn't get to work a full day. So I know some employers, some clients of mine will allow employees to pull from a paid time off bank to help cover any hours, that the office closes early or closes altogether, so that their paycheck is still whole at the end of that week. Clients don't typically mandate that employees do that because paid time off is the employees to choose to do with. It's a benefit for them. So mandating that an employee use paid time off is not always a great idea, but allowing them to do it if they so choose is good. Depending on where you're located in the state and the likelihood of inclement weather, you may decide that you're going to allow up to 3 days, 5 days, whatever you can financially afford in sort of this other time off bank, so that if the office has to close for some unexpected reason, you're going to pull from that bank, not vacation, but this other bank that you've set aside, and pay employees for that day, regardless of whether or not the law says you have to. And that goes a long way towards retaining staff. And again, just trying to put yourself in their shoes. Now, I understand as a business owner, if the office is closed, you may not be getting any revenue for that day, and yet you're still going to have expenses. So I'm not saying everybody can do that, but this is one of those perks, or things that you want to think about as a business owner and say, okay, where am I in the state? What is the likelihood that this will happen? And is this a benefit I can offer staff? Because certainly it would be well received. So just wanted to kind of bring that up. Timing seemed appropriate given the time of year. So if you have any questions on this, feel free to give me a call, or you can email me directly, Jodi Schafer at workwithhrm.com. And just one other quick note here before I send you off into the rest of the year. I know many of you are putting together your training calendars, and I just want to remind you that on the HR Hazmat site, we do have online harassment training available that you can fully customize and deliver in a virtual format to your employees if that's something you're just kind of looking to shake it up, or maybe you've not done it in a while and you want to know what your options are there. So hrhazmat.com, you can pop over there, see what that module looks like, and we're going to be adding more modules, I'm going to mwah, to the camera, more modules this year, one on documentation do's and don'ts, another on orientation and onboarding. So, we're going to continue adding to that site, but as you sort of plan out your training for the year, keep that in mind as a resource. And until next time, I'll see you.